inside. I see the born, I see the born of no return. It's just ahead now, it's just ahead now. Can't you see we're rushing for the end? I see the point of no return. Now see the point of no return. It's just ahead.
For sure. I just don't know that, you know, everybody's up to date. I can tell you that amateur astronomers that have been watching this thing have been fascinated by it. It's a very spectacular comet, rather large, much larger than usual. Some say it's 25, 30 miles across. Others are saying it might be as big as a small state. You know, again, don't really know for sure. It's coming in at a very high elliptical orbit off the plane of the planetary orbit, so the chances of us really hitting it are pretty slim. Not even sure if we're going to run through any of its debris trail. Even that's kind of up in the air right now. A lot of people were speculating that on its trip around the sun, it was passing so close to the sun that it might, break up into a whole bunch of pieces. The latest indications, the latest pictures I've seen, is that it did survive its transit of the sun. It will be coming out the other side, and we probably will see it heading back out into the outer reaches of the solar system in just a few months, probably as early as spring. Next item on the agenda tonight. Any of you out there might go to the gun range, do a little bit of shooting from time to time? Maybe you're one of those diehards that does reloading. Maybe you load your own ammunition. This might be of interest to you. This came out from Breitbart. A fellow named Hawkins wrote this article, published just yesterday. Let me read a little bit of this to you. Because of heightened EPA regulations, DOE run company's Herculaneum lead smelter in Herculaneum, Missouri, the last U.S. smelter of its kind, is closing its doors as of December 31st, 2013. The last smelter of lead in the United States is closing its doors once and for all. Bottom line, what this means is that about the only lead that'll be produced in the United States will be recovery of that lead that's already out there in circulation. I'm not sure how many of you realize this, but inside your car's battery, there's a significant amount of lead. Up until recently, tire weights used to balance a tire on an automobile was made of lead. There's a lot of lead used for industrial purposes constantly. It's a very important strategic metal that there is considerable demand for. But of course, one of the principal uses of lead is as an alloy in the manufacture of bullets, which comprise the projectile for weapons. Well, let's see. They've tried banning the guns outright. They've tried buying up all the ammunition off the shelves so that even if you could get a gun, you couldn't get any ammunition for it. At this point, they've gone right to the source and have eliminated the last lead smelter in the United States. One of the fellows in the chat room has mentioned that, hey, no problem, there's plenty of depleted uranium. And he's absolutely right. Depleted uranium would make excellent bullets. Although, frankly, I'm not sure I'd want to go to the gun range where a whole bunch of people were punching holes in paper using depleted uranium ammunition. Still getting used to holding this telephone next to my head. It's a little disconcerting, but hey, we'll get over it. You know, I started off the news presentation night, and I had a punch list of items that I wanted to cover. And, you know, before I was even going to get into the hot items that have just come up in the last few days, my intent was to remind you of some items from the past that seem to have fallen by the wayside. You know, we have kind of a short attention span here in the United States. We forget very quickly. So I'm just going to run down a quick list here for you to keep in mind. Please keep in mind the Gulf of Mexico, BP, Deepwater Horizon, okay? That still has not been resolved. Please keep in mind that just recently, the IRS was found to have been used as a weapon against pretty much anybody who had the nerve to form an organization to lobby and argue against large government. Okay? That was in the news just a few weeks ago, remember? Please don't forget that there was a horrible incident in Benghazi where our military could have come to the rescue of Americans in trouble in Libya, and for some reason stood down. Please don't forget Fukushima, probably one of the most horrible environmental disasters of our lifetime so far. Please don't think those items are resolved just because you haven't heard much about them in the news of late. They're still out there, still unresolved, and somebody needs to take ownership of those issues and keep them in the forefront. There's another issue that kind of comes and goes. It's a technology referred to commonly as fracturing. Fracking is what it's referred to. I remember a popular sci-fi program called, I don't know, I think it was Battlestar Galactica or something like that, where fracking had other connotations. And concerning a lot of what's going on with the technology referred to as fracking, that kind of applies. We're being fracked. The basic technology is that they drill a fairly small hole into the ground. They go deep. They set off some charges down deep, and then they pump in a hydraulic fluid. Rumors have it that the companies doing fracking are now providing the service of Guido and Louis the Leg Breaker. They're now taking the toxic waste from just about anybody who produces it, and they're pumping it deep into the ground and using this hydraulic fluid under pressure to create small fissures in oil and gas-bearing rock. The technology has been very successfully deployed in some of the shale oil regions of the United States and Canada, and has allowed for the economical extraction of vast quantities of gas and oil. And when used carefully in the right areas, fracking appears to be a safe and reasonable technology. The problem is greed causes people to cast everything else to the winds. And fracking has been done in areas where it's caused contamination of the groundwater. And considering the chemical cocktail used in this hydraulic fracking fluid, it's anybody's guess what manages to seep into groundwater. And I think I'm here. Yes, I am hearing music in the background. So if you please stand by for a minute, I'll finish up my arguments on this particular issue on the other side of the break. Do stand by. I'll be right back. And we're back from that blatantly commercial interruption. Now, I was on the way out, I was talking about this technology, fracking. Okay. There are areas of the country, both the United States and probably Canada, where fracking could probably be done safely. The problem is the companies involved in fracking don't care, okay? They don't care if when you turn your kitchen sink on, you can quite literally light your tap water on fire. That, that's just, an unfortunate coincidence. Well, there are folks right now in Canada who are more than just a little upset with fracking. There's an Indian tribe, and I'm going to try to pronounce the name of this Indian tribe. It's spelled Elsipogtog. Elsipogtog. They're a Native American tribe that has a piece of land that has been, shall we say, allocated to them by the benevolent government of Canada. But now, because oil and gas have been discovered on that land, the government of Canada has decided that some outfit up there should be allowed to just, come into the Native American land holding and frack for those resources. And, of course, the Native American tribes were offered a little bribe to look the other way or to, find that reasonable to do. They basically said no, and it's grown into a considerable protest. There is a hashtag. Those of you who are Twitter users know what I mean by a hashtag. There is a hashtag, Shut Down Canada, all one word. If you're interested in this particular protest to see what's going on with it, I suggest you use your favorite Twitter client and check out hashtag Shut Down Canada. None of it's being reported on our news here in the United States, maybe because it's being done by a bunch of Native American Canadians who, our news is less than interested in. But these fellows right now are carrying the banner for those of us who would like to see some accountability brought to the gas and oil exploration industry. I mean, look, we need the resources. We need the gas and oil. But if your exploration for gas and oil injures someone, the person that you injured is entitled to compensation, at the very least. Revenge, at the very most. So, there should be an incentive for these companies to use some common sense and some care in the deployment of these technologies. Right now, it seems, they've got all the lawyers and all the money on their side, so they get to do whatever they damn well please. There is another issue you need to be aware of. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, what people are talking about as TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership. This is a treaty, a trade agreement between a number of nations. One of the catchy little sidebars in the TPP is that rulings conducted under the TPP cannot be overruled by a local jurisdiction. So say you manage to get the folks in your county to say, oh, no. We ain't doing no fracking in our county. We don't want that here. We don't need your revenue. We don't want to take the chance that you're going to contaminate all of our well water and run us out of the county. We just don't want that on our minds. We don't need you. Go away. Well, this Trans-Pacific Partnership gives corporations override power against your local elected government. That's something to keep in mind. TPP is hot on its way. This thing makes NAFTA and GAFTA and so many other of these heinous trade agreements look like nothing. This one's a killer. And one of the things it's going to remove from you is your ability to organize people in your area to say no to some of these egregious offenses. Puts them out of your reach and gives them an override to whatever you and your neighbors think is right for you. Money, money, money makes the world go round, right? We have a love-hate relationship with those pretty printed pieces of paper with pictures of dead white guys on them. And whenever I get on this issue of the minimum wage, I hear from one side out there that says, no. Do you realize what would happen if you raise the minimum wage? I'd have to pay $20 for my McDonald's. Well, based on the inflation rates, maybe you should be paying $20 for your McDonald's. I don't know. All I do know is that in a recent report that's, the article is from RINF.com, RINF.com. I'm not sure if they actually produced the article or if they're getting it from somewhere else. Since 1982, the top 5% in the United States, the top 5% wage earners, those guys who get a paycheck, not the ones who got so much money that they never get a paycheck, they live off some kind of a, trust fund or annuity, not them. I mean, they're the 1%ers. I'm talking about the 5% of wage earners, the top wage earners in the country. Their incomes have gone up 212%. Okay? 212% since 1982. While the minimum wage has stagnated at early 1980s levels. Now, there's been moves in a few local jurisdictions to try to get the minimum wage up to something approaching $10 an hour. I understand in most places right now it's like $7.25, $7.50, something like that. And when I was a kid, it was $1.60 an hour. But back in those days, you could actually get some for $1.60. Nowadays, you can't hardly get anything for $10. And the fact is, if the minimum wage today had kept up with the increases in pay that top 5% of wage earners have gotten, the minimum wage would be up into the $22, $23 an hour range. So the next time you're arguing against increasing the minimum wage, please keep in mind that the minimum wage was intended to put a floor under people to where they couldn't be taken advantage of, where you had to at least pay them a living wage. These days, the minimum wage means utter poverty. And frankly, without food stamps and all sorts of government subsidies that you're going to pay for anyway, people who have to earn their living on the minimum wage couldn't survive. There would be nobody to mow your lawn. There would be nobody to make your McDonald's. There would be nobody to wash your car. And on that note, I hear the music in the background. I'm going to have to slide out of here while we do another commercial break. Please do stand by. Obviously, the comments about the phone pasted to the side of my head. The folks who are listening to this on the Rinse Radio Network may not realize, but I also broadcast this production as an audio-video presentation on Justin TV, and they're all commenting, "What the heck is with the phone hanging off the side of your head?" Well, we had a little bit of an issue with the Skype that I usually use, and we had to do some real fast pedaling and adjusting, and looked like the technology of last resort was the old-fashioned Ma Bell. Well, let's see. I think I covered most of the hot topics, but I don't want to drop this minimum wage argument too soon. Right now, the best we're hearing out of the White House and some in Congress are that they may raise the minimum wage to something around, $10 an hour or thereabouts. That is putting a Band-Aid on a bloody stump. The minimum wage needs to be very quickly, over a period of maybe 5-10 years, brought back to the point where people could at least survive on it. Now, if that means that you and I are going to have to pay a little bit more for our McDonald's, we're just going to have to get used to it. It's either that or just accept the fact that we're going to have a lower class, a peasant class in the United States who only survives because they're on the government dole. I'm sure there's many in government who would just as soon have them on the government dole, because that gives them papers to move from one pile to another and justifies their positions. I'm sure government would just as soon have those people getting food stamps and supplemental housing allowances and all that nonsense instead of getting a living wage to where they could be self-sufficient. That's my argument. Consider it. Make up your own damn mind. On to another one of my favorite topics. GMO foods. GMO foods. Back in 2008, the United States of America was the first of what is now 11 nations in the world that specifically permit genetically modified products to be consumed by human beings. Yeah. 11 nations. I don't know what, at last count there was 200 and some in the United Nations. 11 of those specifically allow genetically modified organisms to be presented to you as food. Genetically modified food, like so many other technologies, can be a double-edged sword. I'm sure that with continued study, continued work, some phenomenal advances might be made in that technology. It could be that new hybrid strains of edible vegetables and fruits might be available to my grandchildren that just, are much more nutritious, much more tasty than anything we have available today if they continue studying the technology and doing research. But like with so many other technologies, we're hell-bent on turning a profit tomorrow. Nobody's willing to make the investment for, 50 years in the future or 100 years in the future. They want immediate results. They want an immediate return on investment. And because of that, GMO products have been rushed into the marketplace before their time. In particular, a type of corn has been produced called BT corn. It's got a long technical scientific name that I couldn't pronounce to save my life, but BT corn produces its own insecticide. So if you're a bug and you find the corn seeds to be tasty, you creep in, you start munching away, you fall over dead because the corn is now producing its own insecticide. Sounds like a great idea, right? Boy, at least I don't have to worry about those bugs eating our food before we get to it. Well, the downside is when you eat the BT corn, it produces the same insecticides in your gut that it produces in the insect pest's gut. All the little critters that live in your intestinal tract that help break down your food, they're susceptible to this stuff. It kills them off. Consequently, you have severe gastrointestinal problems because you have killed the little symbiotic critters that live in your gut that help you digest your food, all for the want of that tasty ear of sweet corn that only 20, 30 years ago was not just harmless, it was downright tasty and good for you. Well, the latest news related to the GMOs is that China, remember China? The guys who were putting melamine in baby food? China recently rejected 60,000 tons of corn being imported into the country from the United States when it was found to contain BT corn. The chemical that it gives off is Bacillus thuringiensis. It's got one of those darn Latin names that I can't really pronounce, but that's what BT stands for. Bottom line is, China has basically said, hey, Uncle Sam, you can take your BT corn and put it where the sun don't shine. They're not the only ones. In Argentina, Argentina has no rules. There are 11 countries that specifically allow genetically modified materials. Argentina just ignores it. They don't have any specific laws for and against. Okay, so they're just sitting in the sidelines being neutral on it. Well, their people are not neutral. The people have been injured by the use of Monsanto's Roundup, glyphosate or glycosol, something like that. Again, it's got a long scientific name. Commercial name for it is Roundup. It's been heavily used in Argentina to kill weeds. And, of course, they're using special types of soybeans and special types of corn and other products that are resistant to this defoliant. And it's been overused. It was not used cautiously. It was not used judiciously. It's made it into the groundwater. It's made a lot of people in Argentina sick to the point where basically the moms are coming out saying, you're killing my children. And there is right now a significant protest underway in Argentina to have Monsanto ejected from the country. Monsanto had been planning to build a plant in Argentina to produce genetically modified seed. The plant under construction has now been barricaded by these moms for some time. Troops have been sent in to get the folks out of the way, let the construction workers get back to work building the plant. But the protests continue. And this is one to keep an eye on, okay? The people are demanding action on genetically modified foods. Here in the United States, some studies have been conducted that indicate that if you put on your label specifically that your product contains no GMOs, you can expect anywhere from a 10 to 30% improvement in sales. Yeah. So obviously the consumer is out there voting with their dollar. They don't want this stuff. They don't want it here in the United States. They don't want it in Europe. And they sure as hell don't want it in Argentina. The idea of labeling products that contain GMOs just seems like such a no-brainer. I mean, if these companies are so proud of these genetically modified goods and think that this stuff is just so good for you and so tasty and so wonderful, you would think they'd put it all over their labels. Hey, we got this great new GMO stuff to offer you. And you would think that, boy, people would just be lining up to buy that stuff because, you know, it's been proven that it's good for them, right? No, just the opposite is true. The manufacturers, particularly Monsanto, want nothing to do with labeling. They've been extremely resistant to putting a label on the product saying contains this GMO product. Now, as a consumer, I look at it and I say, look, I'm putting down my hard-earned money to buy something that I plan to put into my body. I'm buying this as my food stuff. I figure at the very least, I got a right to know what the hell is in it. Why would anybody object to such a simple request from their consumer? If you're proud of it, tell me what's in it. Looks more and more, though, like they're trying to hide what's in it. They don't want you to know. Gee, I wonder why. Well, I tell you, I had a couple more items I kind of wanted to get into. I got this, oh boy. Yeah, that would have been a good one. But here's one I'm going to leave you with. 3 times as many Americans supported King George during the Revolutionary War than support the U.S. Congress today. Think about that one as I make my way out of here. I'm all done barking at the moon for tonight. Thanks so much for being patient with my technical difficulties, and we'll talk to you again next week. Good night, all.
Calling out to you. Won't you turn, won't you turn around?